Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for tonight's edition of Wave News Extra live in the Wave Now studio. It is 8:05 on your Thursday, September 25th. Discussing with the storm tracking team's meteorologist Ryan Hoke. Kind of has that Friday feeling, but we're not quite there to start the weekend yet. But we do appreciate you spending some time with us as we take a look again at the latest updates, headlines, information on the stories that the Wave News team has been tracking all day long, sharing any of those updates with you, but also giving you an opportunity to catch up on those stories, whether that's right here live on the Wave Now app from your home or your smart device or on our different social media channels. So we're going to dive right in because we just got this breaking news alert on a verdict around 7:15 pretty recently within the last hour of this case we've been following since the start of the week. It's a guilty verdict, and I'm going to read what was sent in from our reporter Fernando Garcia Francischini. Keyshawn Stewart, a jury reached its verdict in the case of Stewart, who was accused coming into today of killing a Louisville construction worker and shooting an off-duty LMPD officer in the face back in 2021. So the jury found Stewart guilty but mentally ill on murder, criminal intent to murder, wanton endangerment, and fleeing or evading police. I want to bring you some of the video from inside the courtroom today. Stewart's defense had argued that their client, was failed by mental health providers across our community. Prosecutors, on the other hand, argued it was proven by them, they say, that he knew what he was doing was wrong. Obviously, we're waiting to hear what the jury is going to say as far as sentencing recommendations. That's going to happen tomorrow morning at 10. But just to give you an idea of how it was in court today, closing arguments were supposed to start at 11 a.m. That didn't happen until about 1:50. We learned from the judge the reason that this delay happened was there were some complicated jury instructions that had to be make sure they were ironed out to the jurors in this pool. The prosecutor spent most of their time in closing arguments going through the different instructions, the charges, explaining why Stewart should have been found guilty. They say that there was evidence beyond a reasonable doubt he shot and killed Fred O'Bannon and hurt Sergeant Chris Lane. The defense, on the other hand, argued Stewart should, again, have not been found not guilty by reason of insanity.
I believe I've shown what I needed to show by preponderance of the evidence that Keyshawn was not sane that day, that he was insane at the time these things happened.
So you heard from the defense there, obviously, in Fernando's full report. You'll hear from prosecutor's side as well as far as the video is concerned. The defense, but in that moment, arguing Stewart was failed by, again, who would have been mental health care professionals, and mentioning there wasn't enough evidence that Stewart was using drugs when the shooting happened. And so that information, of course, updated now on wave3.com. You can kind of go much more in depth into what Fernando learned from this jury decision inside the courtroom. I want to take you now to some more stories we want to let you know that we were looking into today. A man from Louisville was arrested after police say he pointed a gun at a victim's head in a case of road rage. LMPD telling us this happened 4:30 yesterday afternoon on Interchange Drive near Mount Washington Road. There's a lot of fast food restaurants and smaller businesses in the area. Police say Austin Kelly cut off another driver, slammed his brakes, causing the crash. An arrest report we got a copy of says Kelly then got out of the car, pointed a gun at the other person's head, and slapped him in the face. When police asked Kelly about the incident and the gun, the arrest report claims that Kelly responded by saying, quote, "What gun?" He's now charged with reckless driving, assault, and wanton endangerment. He was also charged with drug charges because police say they found marijuana in his car. More headlines tonight. Metro Council leaders, we know, through much of the afternoon discussing big business for the county and for the city. But part of that we'll check in tonight on Wave News at 11 is they were calling, some of them, on the state legislatures to pass a law that would compensate people who were wrongly convicted and therefore shouldn't have been put in prison. The council, likely debating that through the course of the evening. Kentucky is one of only 10 U.S. states that does not compensate people who are wrongfully convicted. Since 1989, Metro Council, offering the data we could find, says at least 22 people in Kentucky were wrongfully convicted, each on average having spent 10 years in prison before they were exonerated. So whether or not there was a resolution passed, our Julia Richardson is checking in on that for whatever the ultimate decision is. If the council would have or should have did not decide to recognize wrongful conviction day, trying to make this push to A, acknowledge exonerees in Jefferson County, but B, ask Kentucky state lawmakers to eventually catch up to other states on compensation. We'll break that down for you through the course of the evening and tonight on Wave News at 11. Moving on to a years-long legal battle, Louisville's Metro Council also just settled a lawsuit with LDG Development. This is over a project that would have been called Prospect Cove. This was what our Alina Noakes spent time looking into and better explaining today. The settlement's price tag, a little over $6 million, and there's a non-monetary stipulation that Metro Council now has to talk and consider legislation that would change the county's land development code so that it would benefit affordable housing projects that companies like LDG tried to pitch. The lawsuit dates back to 2017. That's when, after some community pushback, Metro Council voted down the Prospect Cove development proposal. It would have been a nearly 200-unit complex that would have given affordable housing to seniors if they wanted to live there off River Road. LDG sued Metro Council, saying they violated the Fair Housing Act by voting this down. And the settlement, again, not just the payout, the change to the land development code, including specifically expanding the timeline that affordable housing builders had a planning phase and the extent to which council can weigh in on zoning changes. Both of these, according to Councilman Andrew Owen, who talked to Alina Noakes today, he says this was already in the works before the settlement was agreed to.
These were changes that needed to happen anyway, and that we were going to bring in front of council anyway. And so the conversation to include them in the non-monetary part of the settlement just makes all the sense in the world to me. I see no issue with that at all.
The changes, again, were introduced by Councilman Owen in June, and they've been approved since. Meanwhile, the lawsuit against the city of Prospect, when it comes to the proposal, that is expected. It's still going on, and it's expected it'll actually go to trial. Moving on to an update. And by the way, Sellersburg, hopefully, if you're tuning in tonight, there's the road closure for a gas leak. You can check our information on wave3.com. I don't have the exact road address in front of me, but just know that if you check the website on the push alert, what area you're advised to stay away from to take care of a gas leak that was reported. Just a heads up on that. But when it comes to this story in Sellersburg, a dog was rescued. There was a call that reported there were power lines down, and this turned into a working house fire in Sellersburg. It happened around 10:15 last night. This was on South Fern Street. When crews got there, they found the flames coming from inside the home in a back room and taking over the entire attic space. Officers, they rescued people from inside the home. There was no one reported hurt or injured. And to this point right now, the fire department hasn't clarified if it was the down power lines that either started this fire or if in the end they contributed to what happened. One more story as we're going to reset and go over more of the big stories of the day. This was thanks to our reporter, David Mattingly. And in the sense of with Congress men and women who represent our respective districts here in Wave Country, Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie wrapped up a 2-day campaign tour across his district, meeting with voters, supporters, a chance to measure how much support he has after breaking with President Trump on some key issues. Massie supporters who talked to David today say they might have miscalculated, the president might have miscalculated in his attempt to get the congressman voted out of office.
President Trump has called him a simple-minded grandstander and a pathetic loser. But Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie has nothing but praise for the commander-in-chief. There have been months of attack ads calling for his defeat and a string of presidential social media insults. But Thomas Massie seems unaffected, even amused by all the negative attention.
Just a dose of humor is good to deal with it. I don't hold grudges against anybody, and I've never even had a grudge to hold against the president.
And this 2-day, non-stop tour around Massie's 4th district proves to be a confidence builder. This crowd on a Thursday morning in Shelbyville reveals MAGA faithful unwavering in their support for Massey.
I support the president in everything except him deciding that he doesn't like Thomas Massey. I think that's a big mistake on his part.
And he's the most honest, has the most highest integrity of any politician that I know of.
Those opinions come from Massey's 13-year record in Congress, rejecting deficit spending and maintaining a strict constitutional approach to limited government.
Thomas Massey has always been Constitution first. Trump says he's America first, but I don't think you can be America first unless you're Constitution first.
The support suggests Trump's attempts to dump Massey may be backfiring. Massey himself revealed his name recognition is soaring, jumping 20 points, he says, to 94% in recent months. And here's what he said when asked about his approval rating.
Without disclosing any proprietary information, if the election were today, I would sail through it against any candidate we list on the ballot.
The president's frustrations with Massey are not likely to end anytime soon. Massey says he now has all the signatures he needs to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. David Mattingly, Wave News.
We are here at 8:16 and going through again some of the big headlines I wanted to share with you all as I'm going to bring you outside, take a look at what I love looking at this time of night, taking at the clock, 8:16. Much cooler temperatures, which we're going to discuss later on tonight with meteorologist Ryan Hoke, but enjoying sort of this cool down after a bit of that warmth. And definitely, as he put it, a month's worth of rain that was sorely needed for a lot of our counties dealing with those burn bans and the droughts, just trying to counter as much of that as possible, but enjoying all the different hues of lights and colors coming from our downtown SkyTrack camera. I'm enjoying that for certain. Well, folks, coming up after the break, it's going to be a lot of sports talk, but part of it is let's call it Louisville's role in helping test some new technology that's going to bring baseball, Major League Baseball, into a new modern age with new tools for players to use. And of course, it is Thursday, so we're a night away from TDFN action, the game of the week action, talking college football, baseball itself, the conversation picking up over who's going to make it to the postseason and those last slots for the wild card spot. So hope you stick around because we're going to have our sports anchor, Dusty Baker, kind of walk us through some of those big stories that he's got on his plate. And then after that, we'll bring in our Wave News reporter, Logan Perrone, about this trial and error testing on ABS, automatic balls and strikes, being tested right here at Slugger Field and how it's getting its call up to the major leagues. So we're going to take a quick break and be right back with much more of tonight's Wave News Extra. Hi there, folks. Welcome back into Wave News Extra. We're keeping this SkyTrack camera up, enjoying the downtown lights. You can see a little bit of that moon, that half moon peeking out to the left of your screen there. I always love to enjoy this sight. And hopefully if you folks, if you're watching, maybe not enjoying a night out on the town, but appreciate you sticking around to kind of unwind the day with us as we're keeping things going here in the Wave Now studio. Always appreciate you all for that. And a reminder, by the way, as I'm going to set this up, that we do have all of the updates coming in, including a lot of breaking news this evening. We talked about that guilty verdict coming in for a court case here in Louisville of a murder case. This gas leak that was reported in Sellersburg, Indiana. Of course, the top national story as well about that recent indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Also, certainly something that, as the national news, of course, breaks that down, we're going to, let you all know about what that is going to be. But that will be something for our national partners to certainly, get situated at that end. So a reminder, of course, the wave3.com homepage, an excellent resource to bring that in. Appreciate you folks joining us, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, on the Wave Now app. Whatever that way is, always appreciate you. By the way, always appreciate when we have guests to discuss things that are happening in our neck of the woods. Who would that be, as I teased before we went to break? None other than our Wave News sports anchor, Dusty Baker. Dusty, so much to discuss because not only is it, TDFN Eve, and it feels like the season's been going on so long already, but we know there's more in store.
Right.
For Cards fans, a matchup that's ACC play, something that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
And the piece de resistance is going to be us talking baseball because
Yes.
it's going to be a very baseball heavy Wave News Extra tonight.
Yes.
But I won't belabor the point, Dusty.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what would you like to tee up first?
I think we got to do Trinity St. X, right?
Okay.
So the story, obviously, as we go into tomorrow, it's the battle for the shillelagh, as we like to call it. And you have two teams that are number one and number two in the state going head to head. And today they had their annual luncheon. They call it the Salute to the Game luncheon. And so, obviously everybody, Jose, from Trinity's side, St. X's side, they go into the room, everybody's all happy, like a bunch of speeches, all that. And tomorrow night, they're not going to be friends, right? And it's going to be really cool to go back to where it should be, which is L&N Stadium. Last year, this game, it was kind of bizarre because the game was, of course, pushed back to Saturday due to weather. So, of course, keeping the fingers crossed that we don't have to deal with that situation again. But when you look at what is currently these two top teams, I just have to say that I think that you're going to get exactly what they're, obviously showing out for, which is number one, number two. The battle of quarterbacks between Mason Trimble, who's right there celebrating from last year's win at St. X, because that's where it was played, not L&N Stadium, and Zane Johnson, who, of course, helped lead Trinity to back-to-back state titles. But yes, the shillelagh went to St. X this past year. So, and St. X has actually won this 3 of the last 4 years. And I think it's important to note as well, Jose, that when you look at what St. X has been able to accomplish, it feels like you've been kind of sitting here waiting for them to get over that recent hump because Trinity has won those back-to-back state titles. And so St. X can make a massive statement. Now, I did talk to Jay Cobb. I also talked to Kevin Wallace, who, by the way, this is his final matchup between these two, unless the playoffs, of course.
Which, it carries that extra weight. But to say these are two teams where I know their expectations are to go deep into the playoffs, Dusty.
Right. It is. And I believe that at the end of the day, right now, both of these teams are still learning about who they are, right? And so that's an important thing to note. That you look at where Trinity is currently at. They mentioned that there are some defensive things that they'd like to work on. Offensively, they have some serious talent, right? It's just a matter of consistently putting it together. It seems like they've done that early on this year. And I'm a pretty firm believer that Trinity, they could win a state title tomorrow if they wanted to. As for St. X, we saw them slip up a bit against Elder. Granted, the Cincinnati schools beat both of these schools. So, where you're at currently in the year, these aren't supposed to be the best versions of their teams, right? And so when you look at where we go into tomorrow, this is not the end all be all, but as you well know, as a Florida guy, right? When Florida goes up against the Miamis of the world, or Florida LSU, I mean, you name it, but the big one would be Florida State.
Sometimes there's just some matchups you circle on that calendar, and nothing. It's almost like even if you have a losing season, Dusty, like nothing else matters except the bragging rights to carry that and hold on to for the remainder of the season.
Right. And going up against those like Miami and LSU schools, you want to win those games, right? But when it's Florida State, it's different for you guys, right? And so, and of course, as a TCU guy, that's how we feel about Baylor, right? And so I think the big one would be people talk about Ohio State and Michigan, how, Ohio State wins this past year. Well, guess who's still bragging? Somehow it's Michigan fans, because Michigan did beat Ohio State during their national championship season. So needless to say, both of these teams want to win tomorrow. It doesn't mean it's the end all be all. But it means a lot from a pride standpoint, a lot as far as a measuring stick. And knowing that these are 1 versus 2, I think that just adds to it, and it'll be back at L&N Stadium.
Real quick for the fans who might be tuning in, I'm hoping, if y'all want to drop a comment and let us know who you're rooting for, whether that's obviously each of you has your schools and the TDFN team is going to cover those games. But in this, game of the week matchup in Trinity and St. X, let us know, drop a comment who you're going to be rooting for. To set you up for the question, Dusty, what do you think? The coaches may not reveal who they think their X factors are, but in you guys following each of these teams, and they haven't shown the full versions of themselves yet. But what would you say are those X factors that could decide a game so critical for team morale? Who are the guys on the teams?
So obviously you can highlight so many different players, right? But I think Marlon Harbin III has the impact to be able to control this game. He did last year. You'll see on this essentially every highlight from last season, right? Number 6 is who you're keeping that eye on. And he plays on both sides of the ball for St. X. Trinity as a team probably has on paper maybe more depth, and that's why they're number 1, right? But Harbin is explosive to the point where he can change the game on a dime. And he did that last year. He's done that plenty this year. Trinity is going to need to figure out how to solve the equation that is Marlon Harbin. And there you see right there, he had an interception last year that ultimately ended the game for them. So he plays it on both sides of the ball. He is a nuisance for a coach to have to try and scheme against. He's a U of L commit, so you get to watch him play in what will be his future stadium, which is kind of cool too. But I will say, as far as X factors are concerned, I think across the board, it's Marlon Harbin III that we're going to be saying that name either a lot of, or if we're not, that means something's going right for Trinity, right? So I think the Trinity D-line is really going to have to step up, and they have a lot of great pieces. I think as far as experience is concerned, Zane Johnson from Trinity at the quarterback position. I know this is not like going above and beyond as far as picking out a player. Your quarterback, it's pretty obvious, right? It's the central nervous system of this entire
But he is the field marshal, and he understands the offense better than anybody. He can kind of, gauge the temperature of how the defensive pressure is coming off.
And I'll tell you this, Jose. So I've covered Zane Johnson throughout his entire, career at Trinity, and it's crazy to think he'll still have one more year after this year. So he's a junior. Watching him in practice leading up to this season, I did feel like I watched a slightly different Zane Johnson. And let's preface this by saying this is the Zane Johnson that's already won back-to-back state titles as a freshman and a sophomore. Well, he looked physically way bigger, stronger, and talking to him, there was almost an element that you could feel like, okay, this kid has definitely matured into more of a young adult is how it felt, and a man that can operate that offense. And so I think that he's probably learned from this game, and he will not have wide eye, going into this. Now, I'll give him a lot of credit. It feels like he's never had a wide eye moment, but he only continues to mature, right?
And you could buckle under the pressure that, through no fault of a Zane Johnson, who's already shown you, through the mechanism of the team's success, 2 back-to-back state titles. But, credit where credit is due to say that you've lived, you don't have to guess about that kind of feeling emotionally anymore. And to say, you did not buckle under the pressure necessarily in the biggest of games. This one, guess what? It's still not the championship. It's still not the same championship, but it counts. Building culture, it still counts for this point of the season.
100%. And I will say, I talked to Jamarian Barry, who's the running back for Trinity, and Barry wasn't in this game last year. He was injured too. And so there's a bit of a chip on his shoulder. It's so funny. Like, don't give a team bulletin board material, but for this particular situation, it's personal for a Trinity team that somehow is coming off a state title, right? Like it's kind of crazy. Normally you have the target on your backs, but it is St. X that's won 3 of the last 4. So Trinity knows that. And they're going to go into this thing wanting to take that back. And so St. X had the last laugh last year, right? And rightfully so. They played a great ball game and on their home turf. And so it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out back at L&N Stadium with I think one more player to mention, just because I mentioned the quarterback for Trinity. St. X's quarterback, Mason Trimble, is a very different style quarterback than Zane Johnson. Trimble compared himself to Baker Mayfield, and I couldn't have loved that comparison really anymore, because after watching him play the last couple of years, that is like the perfect comp to what his game is. He just fights for enough yardage. He makes gutsy plays. There's nothing like over the top crazy about his play. He's smart. Sure. He's collected. He's calm. He makes good decisions. He rarely makes bad decisions. He can get out of the pocket. He delivers clean passes. But like, what did I say? I mean, I was talking about Marlon Harbin III, right? So like, he kind of slips under the radar in a weird way. And Baker Mayfield is like that exact same prototype.
It's the wise, or the quarterback wise enough to understand, I don't have the natural talent. There's just some things you can't teach a cannon arm. You can't teach necessarily the quickness and the lightness on your feet. But again, situational awareness, he's doing what you need to do and understanding just maybe, the guys on my side of the ball, if I lay the ball perfectly for them, they have the legs. They have the speed for it.
He manages the whole game. Like you talk about the chief on the field, like that's your operator right there. And so he does a great job. Zane, it'll be fun to watch the quarterback comps, because I'd say Zane does have that like cannon of an arm, right? And like you've seen him develop over time. Trimble's got this mindset that I think is a winning mindset, and both of those things are both good qualities to have, right? And so and, Zane's got great weapons. Trimble's got great weapons. It's an offensive explosion on both sides. But here's the thing, like, if it's not a high-scoring affair, that's because these defenses are also really, really good, which is why you have number 1 versus number 2.
So we're saying we can't promise a 41-40 shootout, because it could be a 13-10 game.
Yeah, I mean, my guess will be it's going to be right in the middle of that. Okay. If the final score will be something around probably like 28-24, right? And
a nail biter at that.
Yes, a nail biter. I ain't picking a winner. I will just gladly, because the moment I pick a winner, the other side will be like, why do you hate this school? And I promise you, I had somebody today at the luncheon, Jose.
Really?
You're going to really love this. So we're at the luncheon for the kickoff. Obviously, it's the salute to the game. And somebody asked me, like, they were going around the table, like, so you went to Trinity, you went to Trinity, you went to Trinity, you went to St. X, you went to St. X. Did you go to St. X? And I was like, no, actually, I went to Valencia.
And then you catch him flabbergasted, and you're like, what are you talking about?
They were like, wait, I'm sorry, I don't think you understood the question. I'm like, no, I understand. I went to Valencia. You don't know where Valencia is.
You just you answered the question truthfully. The thing is, Valencia in California.
Valencia in sunny Santa Clarita, California. Shout out to the Vikings. But yes, that is, I have no favoritism. There is no shade of green that I prefer. I tell everybody, you're going to really appreciate this. It goes the same with U of L and UK. Who do I root for between U of L, UK? Who do I root for in high school? I will just put it this way. Take the U of L and UK colors. Let's combine it together, Jose. Why don't we?
I think I know what purple and what purple comes from blue and red.
I think that's a pretty good way to put it. Guess what color my high school was?
Oh, Valencia was also
Valencia
purple?
was purple.
Really?
And guess, of course.
I'm learning something new today.
Yes,
his true love, his alma mater being Texas Christian University.
Yes, TCU, go Frogs. Big game tomorrow against Arizona State.
All right, so you mentioned Harbin. Who knows how great of an offensive asset he'll be. Not that, when he's coming in, I'm going to say it's a crowded running back room regardless, Dusty.
Absolutely.
And talk about the matchup we've got coming in, Louisville against Pitt this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the running backs first, because injuries have been a huge problem for the Cards. And we still are a little bit uncertain as far as what's the situation involving this running back core. Isaac Brown had that one carry that you saw right there for 18 yards, and then he got knocked out the rest of the game. Duke Watson didn't play at all. So Keywan Brown was the man that they really had to rely on. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything for the people out there, because let's be honest, we all know the value of each of these teams that they're playing. Louisville was supposed to dominate Bowling Green, and They did a really good job at playing great defense. I will say the offense, it showed signs of life despite the injuries, but they had a really hard time midway through the game at completing drives, right? We saw, I think, a series of like 4 or 5 field goals, and that was strictly because getting across the goal line was a struggle. You even saw right there that was a bit of a struggle too, right? So the special teams played a key role. Colin Lacey, after fumbling, had a punt return for a touchdown. I'm just going to put it out there, Jose. This team is going to need to play a lot cleaner across the board if they want to win, because they're on the road against a team that for some reason just has given the Cards a rough time over the years. And so the defense, I think, should be expected to step up. I'm not too worried about that. The offense is what I'm interested by, because there are a lot of question marks from the health. Chris Bell was mentioned to be beat up too. So I'm just a little maybe concerned about that. Pitt is not a team that I'm going to sit around and say, man, this is it. This is the biggest game of the year. It's every game is the biggest game of the year. Coach will tell you that. This will be the most telling game of the year for the Cards because they just haven't been tested. Like they straight up, the JMU game should not have been a test for this group.
Which was only a 14-point margin by the time it was all said and done.
And I mean, you're talking about they were struggling the majority of the game to get anything going offensively. So that's why I feel like we're going to learn a lot about this group this weekend, whether Cards fans want to hear it or not. Like this offense hasn't shown that it is as good as it can be, right? Like it definitely has not shown that. It has a lot of good pieces. There are plenty of weapons to go around. There are no doubts about that. Like you could turn to virtually any player on that offensive squad and you could be like, yep, this player could have a massive day. Isaac Brown has the chance to go for 200 rushing yards a game. Duke Watson probably is a starter on most college teams. Kewan Brown proved that he probably should be a starter on most college teams, right? So they have the weapons in the backfield. Miller Moss, as far as passing is concerned, getting accustomed to the offense, he said that he felt a little more comfortable going into that matchup against Bowling Green. I still need to see more, if we're being completely honest. And so I'm just intrigued to see how they handle a Power 4 opponents at Pitt. Road test. They haven't been on the road yet this year. And they just really haven't had a matchup that you were like, man, I feel like Cards fans want to get up for this game. Right. Like it's just the reality. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
No, you're assessing it as it should. I was going to ask you, Dusty, if the red zone conversion rate, you get into the weeds in any sport, I understand, but you're just looking for, again, the most pressurized situations.
Yeah.
And you've come down the field, gained so much of that yardage, depending on whatever your field position was. If you're Coach Brom, you sort of know where my eyes are going to as far as like where the O-line is to open up the game plan for the offense.
Yeah.
But if you're not finishing on third down in the red zone, get the field goal.
Yeah.
But that's an opportunity if you're expecting, the offense to, reach its full potential on high octane. You got to complete the drive.
Yeah, you have to complete drives. I mean, I will say if there was one major takeaway that maybe a lot of people are not talking about, it's that Louisville's got a kicking game, man. They've got 2 guys that can kick. And from short yardage, Ron Vier can do it. And then, I mean, they even had a long yardage field goal as well. And so I don't know. I want to see the offense piece it together more. I think Miller Moss has a lot in the tank. I'm a big fan of obviously conference realignment. And so I've watched a lot of Pac-12 in my day. And so I've therefore watched a lot of USC Trojans in my day.
He's got game tape to show you he had some. Otherwise, I mean, I think Coach Brom and you don't recruit a guy to come, and get in the transfer portal and be like, come on over to Kentucky.
And Cards fans felt it against Miller Moss because Miller Moss put on a show against them in the Holiday Bowl back in San Diego. So what is there as far as potential. I just don't know if it's been tapped into just yet with Miller. Like it's felt like he's been more of a system quarterback than showing the arm strength, than showing getting out of the pocket and finding the open man or making a big play. I don't know if they've figured that out yet. I'm really convinced that Colin Lacey is going to wind up being a Cards favorite for fans. Like I think he's going to be a fan favorite at some point here because some Cards fans love him already, but like he has the capabilities to be an explosive player on every given play, right? And so Miller Moss needs to take full advantage of that. I look at Colin Lacey as a guy that could be a difference maker in any ball game. And considering all these nicks and bruises, that's the guy that I would love to see really show out.
Lean on your guys if you got to give, the Isaac Browns of the world a little more time to nurse those injuries.
Yes.
I mean, next man up.
Yep.
Hope that depth of talent is there for on the offense and the defensive side. Looking at the clock, just because this is not to kick Dusty out. I'm just keeping in mind the clock. It's 8:40. Appreciate everyone who's still joining us on the different streams: Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, X, on the Wave Now app. The transition here, not the smoothest, but I know this is Dusty's bread and butter.
Yeah.
And yes, this is no Shohei highlights about him hitting his career highs in home runs, and whether or not the MVP
54th home run today,
and whether or not the MVP conversation in either league is tighter than it deserves to be. But the wild card, these are stakes for the teams that want to go on these deep playoff runs.
Yes.
Dusty, not. The closest we've got to root for and we follow are the Cincinnati Reds, hoping they don't let this slip away. Who knows if coming into the season, the expectation was that they would still be hanging around for this competitive baseball in, late September. Talk to us about what you've got here on the highlight coming up.
Well, so tonight we will be showing you the highlights from what was just a wild finish between the Pirates and the Reds. Noelvi Marte, I would say, makes the play of the year with everything on the line, with the way the Reds have been playing and the importance of winning from this point in time, every single game. The Reds need to win every game to close out this year if they want to be in the playoffs. So I'll give you this because you can literally go anywhere to find these highlights. We will be showing it on Wave 3, and that'll be tonight at 11. And we'll have a full-blown recap of this Reds matchup against the Pirates. I will say this, Jose. The Pirates are not a great franchise, right? They've really struggled. There's been a lot.
What, Dusty?
Yes, exactly, right? Like, it's shocker.
I can't believe what you just said.
This is stunning stuff. This is like the sun will come up during the day and it will go down at night.
And Pirates fans, do not throw the hate at me tonight because I'm saying this as someone who loves the franchise and understands the history. And I'm just like, you can't tell me, show me what you've done for me lately.
I think Pirates
and
fans
what's lately,
know.
it's just like Pirates fans know like the standard should be there. And guess what? You've been in a division. The Cubs have won World Series recently. In my lifetime, Dusty, the Cardinals have won a World Series.
Oh, yeah.
The Cubs have won a World Series.
Yep.
The Reds, not in my lifetime, but they've made relevant teams with Hall of Fame players. God, who else is in the division?
You won't have the Brewers because the Brewers have never been.
They've never been, but guess what? The Brewers were going to win the division.
Yep.
The Pirates are not relevant in this discussion.
No, the Pirates are not. And so the Pirates should not have been a team that stood in the way of the Reds' postseason hopes. And I will give the Reds maybe just a little leeway off of having to face Paul Skeens. That was a very tough draw for them, having to go up against him. But hey, guess what? If you're going to the postseason, you got to beat good pitchers, right? Like even the elite of the elite, you have to beat them. That's where you're going to see most of them. Guess who you're not going to see in the postseason? It's Paul Skeens. So they unfortunately got kind of the rotten end of that one, but they needed to win these first two games. So to be able to at least walk away with this one was huge. And so here's the thing. If you're a Reds fan, you need to be rooting as hard as possible against the New York Mets and against the Arizona Diamondbacks, because your ticket to getting into the postseason will be the Reds finishing out this year in Chicago, beating the Cubs, and also having the Mets lose and the Diamondbacks lose. Good news for them. The Diamondbacks did lose to the Dodgers today.
Right.
So the Reds are ahead of the Diamondbacks. They're not as much of a problem right now.
Yes.
And if the Mets lose tonight, the Reds will jump into the wild card, right? So they will be the final team in the wild card. And so that is super important because the head-to-head, that is massive. Like they have the same record at the end of the year. Congratulations. There you go. You're in. But it's going to be fascinating watching this down the stretch. And I'll be honest, like I didn't see this coming. I really did not. The Reds, I kind of wrote them off about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It just didn't feel like there was any gas in the tank. I mean, and it's not even that there was gas left in the tank. They had struggled. Like they had their issues. But they've got a good young core. They have really solid starting pitching. Yeah, I think they could be dangerous if they made it to the postseason. I mean, you're telling me that if I had to face a team that slips into the playoffs, that all of a sudden throws Hunter Green at me in game one.
There's one ace in your rotation.
Like,
I'm thinking of the Nick Lodolos.
Lodolo is super lethal. Lefty, crafty. He's got filthy stuff. He went to a great school. I'm sure you can guess where he went. If you want to Google that, feel free. But yes, Lodolo is lethal. And then on top of that, Brady Singer is super good. And you're talking about what school did he go to?
Just saying, it's like a couple of good baseball schools.
Maybe they understood the assignment and they decided, hey, let's just go to Dusty and Jose's schools. But so you have Hunter Green, who came from my hometown.
That's really cool, by the way, too, to be
I actually faced him. Yeah.
To think, that's one picture of your Dodgers. Well, we know they're making it into the postseason. It's just whether or not the wins and wild card out of that are going to be that the Reds are going to have to face the Dodgers. And is that a Shohei versus Hunter Green matchup? And you're just like, can we not get like B quality pitchers? I don't want A quality pitchers for my batters to have.
You let it right into it, man, because yes, the Reds fans, if reality hasn't settled in just yet,
who's next?
I might be the enemy. I might be the enemy. It will be the Dodgers versus either the Reds, the Mets, or the Diamondbacks in the wild card round. And so, I mean, you got to get there first. And then if you do, you're going to Dodger Stadium where 56,000 fans are going to be loud. Everybody's going to be watching you because guess who's playing? Shohei Ohtani. And it'll be his first postseason where he's pitching. And so then on top of that, I mean, guess who? They still have Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Teoscar Hernandez.
A healthy Tommy Edman, who showed he was great in the playoffs last year.
Will Smith might be back, good old Louisville boy. Will Smith might be back for the postseason. He has an injury, so he's been knocked out. But they found a guy that's followed up really good with him with the Ben Rortvedt. So, I mean, they've got pieces. And so everybody knows when the Dodgers are facing you, that's a tough situation, right? Like, I don't think it's very hard to debate that.
No. One last thing then before we wrap up, Dusty. It's hard to sort of kind of keep it tight and summarize it, but has anything changed in your calculus for who should win AL, NL MVPs at this point in the season?
Yeah, I will try to keep this as tight as I can. Some people on Twitter love my takes. Some people hate them. And the people that hate them are Yankees fans. I believe from the AL side, Cal Raleigh is doing something we've never seen before. Okay, a catcher hits 60 home runs, and then people have been arguing, oh, it's just a catcher, big deal. That is the hardest position to play in the game of baseball, right? Like, you're crouched down for 9 innings plus, and you probably don't get the chance to play 162 because you do need your rest. So, I've heard a lot of arguments about how Aaron Judge is being intentionally walked, and all credit to Judge. There's nothing taking away from how great of a season Judge is having.
Which I can still tell you, it's been the four seasons in a row now, 50+ home runs?
Yes, which is insane, right? Like, insane.
I'm not taking away from him, but
no.
I'm just saying in a sport that's as romantic as baseball, when he passed the threshold, Mickey Mantle's threshold, I'm just like, okay, this is now like. Not that Aaron Judge is not the shiny new toy,
right?
But you don't see this happen once. I'm trying to think of a what?
You've never seen this.
Johnny Bench didn't do this.
No.
Salvador Perez didn't.
Sal didn't do this. Right? Sal hit 48 home runs. So Cal broke the catcher home run record like a month ago.
Mm-hmm. He broke Griffey's record.
Yes.
If you're a Mariners fan, like that's
That's
huge.
That's insane. And so 60 home runs and counting because he's not done yet. No. My vote will go to Cal Raleigh because, listen, stats are an important part of the game. 60 home runs is a stat. It's very much a stat. It's an unbelievable stat. Babe Ruth had 60 bombs. Aaron Judge, when the 60 count happened, there were cameras on him constantly where they were doing cut-ins during college football.
I remember those Sports Center cut-ins.
A lot of people didn't like those. Well, guess what? Nobody's doing it for Cal Raleigh. And Cal Raleigh deserves the credit. Look how his team is on a generational run for an organization that has not won the AL West since 2001.
Hungry for this kind of postseason success.
Aaron Judge has been a key leader for the Yankees, and he's a key reason why the Yankees made it to the World Series last year. But notice the Mariners are ahead in the standings. Notice this is a historic season for the Mariners. And this season would not happen if Cal Raleigh didn't have a Cal Raleigh season. That is why I'm voting for Cal Raleigh, because he's led the Mariners, a better team than the Yankees, to a better point in their season, and there are less pieces, or there were less pieces around him until the acquisitions of the deadline, which I thought the Mariners killed. So Cal Raleigh's my pick there. It's going to be hard to go against Shohei Ohtani.
Okay.
Kyle Schwarber's really had an incredible year, and I love Kyle Schwarber. I think from the fact that you have the same thing, the tools that Ohtani's now been pitching, and it's a 2.87 ERA that he's featured on top of 54 home runs.
His own career high anyway,
Yes.
by that measurement too.
I don't think that you can argue that. And I think that'll be a little bit of an easier,
It's not a harder argument to make.
I don't think that's going to be difficult. I wouldn't be angry if Kyle Schwarber was named MVP because he has helped lead the Phillies to an incredible season. And you can make similar arguments that I made for Cal for him. I mean, it's honestly kind of crazy. Like Ohtani and Judge are always going to get kind of the favoritism because those are the two biggest faces right now in baseball.
Yes.
And on opposite leagues, we're at the World Series last year, and they
on trajectories to be Hall of Famers.
Yes, high averages.
I don't know necessarily if you could make the argument for a Schwarber or a Cal Raleigh because the body of work isn't there yet.
Raleigh might have really done himself some serious duty in getting talks about that. I think after this year, we're going to sit there and be like, okay, Cal Raleigh was never in the discussion. Now it's like potential future Hall of Famer Cal Raleigh. Seriously, I mean, like, this guy is insane. And Kyle Schwarber has been a really, really good player. I don't know if the numbers necessarily support Hall of Fame for him, but there's a longer career for him, and he's one of the more likable players. Indiana grad, by the way, IU grad, I mean, you have four unbelievable faces that baseball is marketing very well. But man, I'm going with Ohtani and the Big Dumper.
Ohtani and the Big Dumper. Who knows? Maybe there's your potential World Series matchup if things shake out.
If that's the World Series.
Ooh, boy, somebody's scratching their head.
Oh, man, I don't know.
All right.
Oh, that would be tricky for me.
It's always a treat to have our Dusty Baker, who, by the way, as he mentioned tonight at 11, going to break down those Reds highlights, much more of TDFN previews. So excited to have that chance to break it down with Dusty tonight at 11. A very quick break because this hour's not done yet. Don't want to leave out our Logan Perone.
We can leave him out.
No, we're not going to leave him out just because we're going to keep the baseball conversation going. Dusty talking about whenever this does get brought up to the big leagues, ABS.
Yes. Yeah.
Going to bring that conversation
that'll
up.
be good.
So we're going to be right back after this break. Folks, joining us here for Wave News Extra, Wave News reporter Logan Perone. Logan, it's always, doubly cool when you and I get to talk sports as far as like some novelty and a news concept. It's going to be a very sports heavy Wave News Extra tonight, by the way, with Logan being here. We're going to keep the sports discussion going, but not to forget bringing in the props because we both love baseball. That's a given.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that in the concept of what more Major League Baseball has tried to add to, kind of liven the game up, make it a little more modern. We've seen sort of the addition of the ghost runners, the pitch clock. Now we're talking about another addition that, it could be controversial in its own right, but the point is to try and offer teams a different way to check balls and strikes. So walk us through A, what this is going to look like, and B, actually how cool it is that it was kind of tested in our own backyard.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, let's jump right to it. We're talking about robo-umps, or as it's actually called, it's the Automated Ball Strike, or ABS challenge system. So essentially what this is it is a system in which a batter, catcher, or pitcher can challenge a pitch. So here's what it'll look like. Pitch comes in, batter doesn't like it, so he'll tap his helmet. If it was a pitcher, it'd be the hat, catcher, the mask. So then they'd go to this simulation. People up in the booth, they get a simulation based on a system that's in the ballpark called a TrackMan. And what that does is it tracks the pitch as it comes in. And once they have that challenge happens in real time. So the batter, pitcher, catcher, whoever makes the challenge has to tap their head within a few seconds. And they then will have this, again, just a computer really, of a system like that, ultimately make the correct call or flip the call based on what was decided and what was seen on the simulation. And again, super simple, but again, Jose, something really that gets down to, this is like, you hear the term game of inches, football, baseball, both use that. It really puts the game of inches perspective into baseball, because this system, Jose, goes about as accurate as about 1/10 of an inch.
Sure. So, and we'll put it in perspective with some more visual aids here, but, and Logan was kind of explaining to me, strike zones, if you've played baseball, they vary based on the size of the batter. The pitcher has to adjust, accounting for each different batter that comes up. But in essence, let's pretend, this is, let's say, the height of some zone. And for the sake of this example, let's say this is the top, this is the bottom. The width doesn't matter here, but let's say where the ball might travel on a pitch coming in.
So yes, if the ball, say, nicks the top of the zone, and I'm talking like it skipped off Jose's hand here. If this was the top of the zone,
just the slightest of contact with that line.
If it touches, it's going to fire off that system. And so you're talking about, and again, I'm just going to, as a fan of baseball, we've seen some egregious calls right down the pipe that have been called balls, or balls that have been way out of the zone be called strikes. And so what this does is it makes sure that those will no longer be a factor in the game, because literally it's a game of inches. That is actually what you're looking at here, the TrackMan system that's already up at Slugger Field. So the whole reason that we wanted to do this story today was a highlight of just how our folks here at Slugger Field, the Louisville Bats, they are actually testing these things out. So specifically the TrackMan, it's already been in place. It helps the league, Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, catch spin rate, exit velocity, all those things that are now part of the game. And so what they've done with this ABS system is they utilize what they already have. You have something tracking the ball, getting data and collecting data, and they're using it to say, hey, is this in the strike zone? Now, with ABS, you get a custom strike zone for every single batter. And the way that it works is in a challenge system. You get 2 a game, and you keep them, you retain it as long as your challenge is correct.
It's number one, for example, pitcher or batter can use it. Number one, you think there was a call that was blown, and there's some debate and nuanced debate to be had over the value of still having human sort of judging what these calls are. But let's say for whatever reason, you or your manager don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Give them the sign. The response is pretty immediate. And let's say you do win the challenge, you get to keep, in theory, the 2 that you would have in your pocket from the get-go.
You don't lose a challenge if you end up using it. So, and Jose, I'm going to actually correct you here. A manager cannot make this call.
Oh, it must be the players on the field.
It has to be a player. And
that's good to know.
It's got to be almost immediate.
Okay.
And that's something that, like, when you think of a challenge and you think of how it's done in football, it's a flag thrown by the coach, a decision made by the person who makes the decisions, who goes out on the field, the personnel. This is strictly something that in my discussions with Zealand that we really didn't get to touch on in the report because of the broadcast limitations time-wise that we have. Basically, what you're seeing now is players who have gone through the minor leagues with this are used to it. They know how to use it. And so what this does is it adds another strategy to the game. When do I use it? And you also have players that get a better sense of what the hitting box is, the strike zone. And again, like I said, that varies player to player, but ultimately you get a guy, say I'm 24. You get a guy 24 coming up through the minor leagues today, say he makes his major league debut next year. He's already going to know what his hitting zone is because he's been using ABS for years.
That's fascinating. And for reference for folks, and this might be a refresher for me, Logan. So it's good that you clarify that this is something that's only accessible to players. Do managers have any recourse still, other than what we've seen in the history of baseball, which is like if you don't like the home plate umpire's call, is you're going to come out there and give them a piece of your mind. That doesn't constitute the challenge necessarily. It's just sort of your displeasure if you're the manager with the rate of those called balls and strikes.
So I got to be careful how I say this.
It's okay.
We've seen.
If you love the game, what you're trying to do is like, and in theory, what you're expecting is the umpires who are behind home plate. They're not someone who's a fresh kind of young rookie umpire. In theory, you've earned your stripes playing down the lines, down the foul ball lines. Maybe you've been sitting there, behind second base, kind of dangerous base umpires. And what you would hope is the most seasoned veteran official is the one who understands how to be fair about keeping the strike zone consistent. What they're told should be kind of the standard. Even, doesn't matter how tall or short a batter is going to be.
Well, see, that's the thing is it's all based on the batter.
Yes.
So you have to remind yourself here, folks, that again, human error has been part of the game of baseball since its inception, really. So when you think and look at what this means for the game, it takes a little bit of human error out. And part of the reason that you're seeing a 2-challenge use of ABS and not a full-on every single pitch use of ABS is because it would take the human element out of it. As a pitcher, and I was telling the folks over at Slugger Field earlier, I like when I can get a little bit more off the black of the plate, that little line around the outside of home plate. I love when I'm able to steal that because I know the umpire is going to call it there. That's been strategy. This just adds another element. So yes, there has to be consistency in a strike zone, but it really is 17 inches wide, knees to chest. Do that back.
Do they say no? Would they say pretty much is it sternum? Pretty much the letters on the jersey.
Yeah, you're gonna look at the letters on the jerseys, the top, knees, and again, where on the knees kind of gets subjective. And again, if you're thinking it's full in, but then again, the strike zone is where it nicks it. I mean, it's a game of inches.
To your point, then, and also how far into a crouching position some batters will get, because sometimes you'll see just how deep they are in their stance, and you're like, okay, if he was standing a little bit more vertically, the strike zone changes.
You got to wonder because the way the ABS is going to be working is every batter gets their own custom strike zone. You would think it's just a matter of how they are vertically tall. Again, but what if your stance is like crouching down like this? So it's going to be new to baseball. It's going to have its kinks. It's going to be weird at first when a batter taps his head and goes, yo, Blue, you blew that call.
Here's an example real quick just to see that. It not instantaneous, but almost just very much it's just like he did not like the call, therefore bring out ABS.
Yes, and I mean, look, do I agree with that as a baseball purist? No. Like I said, as a pitcher, I want that pitch that you're seeing right there. I want that as a strike.
But if you're a batter, you love that to get you out of maybe a deep count that's an 0-2 count possibly.
I mean, not to dive into the statistics, because I'm going to lose a lot of our viewers here, but the difference between a 1-1 count and an 0-2 count on the average for a baseball player is drastically different. If you're even in the count 1-1 or if you're back in the count 0-2, the outcomes are extremely different. So you're talking this, say a pitch that misses, because this thing can track to
and in that example, it was 1/2 of an inch. And in that example,
so it actually says less than 1/2 an inch.
That's right, and less than 1/2 an inch.
And I think the smallest, I was told by Vince Zeeland, who is the marketing director with the Bats, he said the smallest he saw this last year, or at least with ABS in general, since it's been implemented, was 1/10 of an inch. So you're talking the tightest window possible, basically, can make the difference in statistically how an at-bat can go, how a game could go. And that's, again, you know what, that's the love about baseball. The game's not over until the final out. You can't just kneel it down. You can't just run out the clock. So you know what, folks? When I tell you at home that baseball is the best sport on the planet, yeah, that's subjective. Yeah, that's my opinion. But it's because a tenth of an inch in the ninth inning can make a difference in the game. You don't see that anywhere else, really, in any other sport.
And I don't know, Logan, that necessarily this was a unique testing ground, although it is cool to know that the bats, were part of the effort to be testing this. But to your point about when you're the top rung in the system, we're still, AAA is going to inform who these guys are, the cream of the crop, come up to be the next stars. If you're the Cincinnati Reds, you're taking these guys who've been performing really well for the bats, and then you're bringing in the knowledge and sort of that comfort zone and saying, like, we don't necessarily have to worry about this next generation of players, and be like, man, as long as this is legal and they know that they can use this to their advantage, it'd be like, then if you're Terry Francona or whatever, don't hesitate. I mean, know that there's two in a game, but if you really feel like that's a call that could swing the momentum, use it.
It's another strategy in the game. Like, please, if you're a Reds, a Bats, for mine, the Phillies, if you're one of those players, for the love of all that is good and holy, guys, do not use this in the first inning with nobody on. Just suck it up and, go back to the bench. Better luck next time, right?
What do we call it? Situational awareness.
Situational awareness. Never had that at the plate, by the way. That's why it was a PO. And again, I would have loved to have this and get a little more out on the outside of the plate, but it is what it is, Gotta make some sacrifices. And this is it.
Yes.
2 challenges a game. That's it. Know where to use it. Don't be dumb. I'm speaking to the players now at this point.
This is your plea to them, where it's just like, don't overstep, don't overuse this.
Don't overstep, don't overuse. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is going to be better off for the game, because I have seen some egregious calls within the last few weeks. And this, I would say really this year, honestly, the entire Major League season has needed ABS. And as a baseball purist, I hate to say it, but bring it on. Let's go. And again,
if nothing else, now you're getting the data points to prove, like, does this work? We won't know until we try in the actual field of play. So
I can't wait.
All right, Logan, we got to wrap the conversation off, just because there's only so much time in the night. So appreciate you stopping by. A reminder, when Logan gets to dive into these stories, it's really cool. And obviously there's that connection point that we're getting to see how this is being used in our community. I always am quick to remind you, Logan's hard work, beyond just what plays earlier in the afternoons, it lives right there on wave3.com. I bet you this is going to be one of those stories, if you'd love to, share with people, send them a link and be like, hey guys, look at this cool story that's happening here in the community that we live in.
And again, that's the amazing thing, is you folks at home have probably already saw this at Bats games. If you've been, that's actually the first place I ever saw this in real life. So it was really cool for me to say, wow, it's finally getting its call up to the big leagues. One that never came for me, by the way.
But that's neither here nor there. Appreciate our Logan Perone's time, Logan. Thank you. We'll have you back here soon. You're becoming a regular guest on Wave News Extra. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with much more of tonight's show and the stream. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We love.
Hey everyone, thanks for hanging around. A big shout out to our sports anchor Dusty Baker and our reporter Logan Perone for hanging with a much longer version of the show tonight, but always enjoy the conversations, especially talking about not just the stories, but the sports and things happening in our community that, of course, we care deeply about and hope you all do as well. But it's an opportunity to sort of break down a lot of these stories right here in the Wave Now studio. And for you folks who've been hanging around streaming this, I want to say I'm looking at the clock about an hour and 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Appreciate you. We really do. A reminder that the wave3.com homepage has all these stories updated as soon as our digital team gets them and publishes them and adds those new tidbits of information right here at the very top. Scroll down, all very easy to access and navigate the different tabs based on categories of things you might be interested in. So it's all there for you to peruse for sure. Appreciate you sticking around. We're going to be working again through the night. Make sure to join us for Wave News at 11 tomorrow night. We'll see how much we can preview as far as TDFN and the stories wrapping up on Friday night are concerned. So hope you'll join us then. Just didn't want to leave without saying goodbye for the night. Hope you take care. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 8:05.